All right, let's dive right in. Today we're going on a pretty incredible journey, all the way down to the very foundation of what it means to be alive. We're talking microscopic. We're talking about the single most important structure in all of biology, the cell. And it all starts with a really simple question.
Have you ever really thought about it? You look at a rock, and then you look at a flower, and you just know one is alive and one isn't. But what's the actual fundamental difference? What's that special something, that spark that separates the living from the non-living? It sounds like a huge, complicated question, right? Well, the answer is actually beautiful in its simplicity.
So let's pull back the curtain and reveal that secret. The answer to this ancient mystery is hidden in a shared design, a common architecture that every single living thing is built from. And there it is, the cell. That's it. That's the whole game. The gigantic difference between that rock and that flower all boils down to the presence of this one tiny, unbelievably complex structure. It's the universal building block. It's the very definition of being alive.
And what's really crucial to understand is that a cell isn't just a passive brick in a wall. No way. It's the smallest possible thing that can truly be called alive. Some organisms, like bacteria, are just one single cell doing their own thing. And then you have us, a massive, bustling community of trillions of cells all working together in perfect harmony.
Now, figuring all this out wasn't some single eureka moment in a lab. Science rarely works like that. It was actually a fascinating story that unfolded over many years, with different scientists adding pieces to the puzzle. This is the story of what we now call the cell theory. So it all started back in 1838. A botanist named Matthias Schleiden was looking at plant after plant under his microscope and realized, hey, wait a minute, these are all made of cells. Just 1 year later, another scientist, Theodor Schwann, had the same realization about animals. But they still had a big question. Where do new cells come from? It wasn't until 1855 that Rudolf Virchow delivered the final critical piece of the puzzle. He declared that all cells can only come from other pre-existing cells.
And all that amazing work brought us to the two simple yet incredibly powerful ideas that make up the modern cell theory. Number one, if it's alive, it's made of cells, period. And number two, cells don't just pop out of nowhere, they only come from other cells. This theory, it's the absolute bedrock of all modern biology.
Okay, so all life is made of cells. Got it. But it turns out nature has two fundamentally different ways to build one. Think of them as two different blueprints for life. Let's break down what that looks like.
So on one side, you've got the simple and efficient prokaryotic cells. Think bacteria. They get the job done, but they're kind of like a one-room workshop. No separate offices or departments. They're missing a true nucleus. On the other side, you've got the eukaryotic cells. These are the cells that make you, me, plants, fungi, the whole shebang. And these cells are defined by having a proper, membrane-bound nucleus, a main office, plus a whole bunch of other specialized compartments called organelles.
And when we talk about size, it's not even close. A typical eukaryotic cell is often 10 times bigger than its prokaryotic cousin. It's really the difference between that small one-room workshop and a massive, sprawling factory complex. So, since we're made of them, let's take a tour of that sprawling factory complex. The best way to get your head around the eukaryotic cell is to imagine it as a bustling, microscopic city, with all these different departments working around the clock to keep everything running smoothly. Our first stop has to be City Hall, the nucleus. This is the command center, the main office. It holds all the vital information, the DNA. You can think of DNA as the master blueprints for absolutely everything the cell needs to do, from what proteins to build to when it's time to divide. And the organization inside is just mind-blowing. The DNA isn't some tangled mess of spaghetti. It's neatly packaged and organized into structures called chromosomes. The whole nucleus is protected by a double membrane with specialized gates or pores that act like security, controlling everything that goes in and out. There's even a special zone inside called the nucleolus, which is like a dedicated factory for building parts for other machines. It's incredible.
All right, let's head over to the city's industrial district. Proteins are the workers, the machines, the actual stuff that gets things done in the cell. And they're built on an amazing assembly line. First, they're put together on machines called ribosomes, which are attached to the rough ER. That's our main factory floor. From there, they're sent to the Golgi apparatus, which is like the city's post office. It sorts them, modifies them, and packages them up for delivery. Finally, they're shipped out in little bubbles called vesicles to wherever they're needed.
Of course, none of this could happen, not the planning, not the manufacturing, nothing without energy. A city needs power to run, right? And for that, the cell has its own dedicated power plants. the mighty mitochondria.
These amazing little organelles are where the action happens. They're the site of aerobic respiration, the process that takes the food we eat and converts it into the cell's main energy currency, a molecule called ATP. They have this really cool structure with a superfolded inner membrane to maximize energy production. And get this, mitochondria actually have their own separate DNA, a little clue about their very ancient past. How cool is that?
So we've taken a tour of this microscopic city. We've seen City Hall, the factories, the power plants. But the real question is, how does all this tiny machinery add up to, well, you? It's time to zoom out.
See, it's the perfectly coordinated action of trillions of these little cellular cities that makes everything you do possible. When you digest a meal, when you form a memory, when your immune system fights off a cold, what you're really witnessing is the grand result of countless molecular processes happening inside your cells every single second. It's the molecular basis of you.
And this whole approach we've been taking, breaking down a super complex living thing into its smaller parts to see how it works, that has a name. It's called reductionist biology. The idea is that by understanding the job of the nucleus and the mitochondria and all the other parts, we can start to piece together how the whole cell works, and then how the whole organism works. But that leaves us with one last, really big question to chew on. We can make a list of all the parts, we can figure out what each building in the city does, we can even map the roads between them. But does knowing the function of every single building truly let us understand the culture, the spirit, the life of that city as a whole? That's something to think about.